back to the Alcohol Free Revolution podcast. It is the 2nd of February. My name's James Lloyd.
And my name is Steve Smith, and I am officially 53 years of age as of yesterday. And you can hear the sheer excitement in my voice at that prospect.
Happy birthday, my friend.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much. I'm still coming to terms with that as a number, but if I flip it the other way, it sounds better. So I'm just calling myself 35 in reverse.
I love that. It's weird, actually, because I never feel old until I realise how old my friends are. And the fact that I know somebody who's 53, who I consider a friend, we've got to know each other over the last year or so, makes me feel really old. I've got a 53-year-old friend. I've actually got friends that are older than that, but yeah. So
yeah, I considered you a friend until you made that comment, and right now I can't.
I'll get it out. So we should I just recap who the hell we are for any new listeners. So we're both alcohol-free performance coaches. We quit the booze 4.5 years ago, and life's been pretty sweet. So we thought we'd get a podcast going and sort of share the love, and here we are.
Absolutely, here we are into February. Where did January go? Dry January. It's gone. It's been done.
I know. Boom time for the likes of you and me.
Absolutely. So, how's your week been generally?
Oh, mate, I don't know where to start. I've been, pretty busy. Lots of coaching, lots of exercise, lots of planning what the year ahead looks like. I'm pretty excited for 2026. Got a lot going on. It's obviously I haven't had a birthday like you have, but been stuck in the house a lot. Weather's crap. So, a lot of planning for the year ahead. It's going to be an exciting year.
Exactly.
What about yourself?
Yeah, good week, thank you. Yeah, it was nice. Had some friends over at the weekend, which was really lovely. Interesting. Always back in the day, that was always a boozy weekend. But some really great friends of mine. We try and meet up 2 to 3 times a year. Big shout out to Woody and Suze, and it was lovely to see them. Had a lovely birthday with the family, and I've been planning as well. But I've decided to take on a big race next year, which is going on sale, or the entries go on in the next couple of weeks. And I was watching it last few days on some YouTube clips. It's a race called the Arc of Attrition 100. And it is a 100-mile foot race around the Southwest Coast Path in January. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know. But yeah, I've decided to give it a go next year. So I'm waiting eagerly for the entries to open, and then begins the year of training and preparation for what's going to be a massive undertaking. I was watching some of the clips of the conditions last week, and they were just slipping around all over the place. And it looked absolutely brutal. But yeah,
sounds awful.
Yeah, that's what going alcohol free does. It makes you realise you can do hard things. But I haven't done it yet.
Turns you into a lunatic.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the plan. That's what's been on my mind for the last week, and and also getting really excited for the year ahead and see what that brings.
Cool. And we're meeting up next week.
We are meeting up next week. We are indeed, yes, which will be lovely.
Yeah, so we're going to we're going to a book signing with Catherine Gray, who's a bit of a hero. I love Catherine Gray. If anyone who's not read The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, it totally inspired me to go alcohol free. I think it was one of the first books that I read, and it led on to a ton of other quit lit. And she's got a new book coming out next week. And Steve and I are going to go down and see her in Brighton and see if we can convince her to come on the podcast. So you'll find out in a few weeks how we got on with that. I'm not very hopeful, to be entirely honest, but I just like to hear her talk anyway because she's awesome and she's really funny. So
it's the posters on the wall behind, the Catherine Gray posters, and the banner that you're planning to take down for the book signing, and and the T-shirt that you've had made up. I mean, not that you're a big fanboy or anything.
Oh, she's great. Honestly, I thought her book was hilarious, and I've been saying to you for a while, and no disrespect to any of the guests we've had on because they've been absolutely brilliant. But if I could pick one person from the alcohol-free space who I'd want to come on the pod, it would be Catherine Gray. So yeah, we're going to drive all the way down there, which is about a hour and a half drive, sit there and listen to her speak for a bit, and then beg her to come on the podcast. And if you're listening to this as a back catalogue episode, in about 2 or 3 episodes' time, we don't get Catherine Gray, we've completely failed, which is the most likely outcome, I would say. I don't know what I'm going to say to her.
I've got visions of security with their arms underneath your shoulders, pulling you out the building with you screaming, "Please, Catherine, please."
Yeah, you're there to rein me in.
We will see what happens. You never know. So if you're listening, Catherine, not that I don't think you are, but if you are, we'd love to have you along.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So yeah, that's next week. So we better talk a bit about the community, like we do every week. So we've got a little group of people that we're gradually building and growing and nurturing, and we get together on a Monday lunchtime and have a bit of a chin wag, which is super nice. Hopefully we might be able to get one or two of them on at some point soon. I'm hoping.
Yeah, that would
We'll
be
see.
lovely.
We'll see how that goes. But yeah, if you want to join the Alcohol Free Revolution community, it's completely free. We're not trying to sell you anything. It's just a group of people getting together once a week, chatting about what it's like to be alcohol free, some of the upsides, some of the things that are perhaps a little bit more difficult, and kind of just sort of sharing experiences. Really, we've got some people who are just getting started. We've got others that are a few months in. Others have been at it for a year. And yeah, and we talk about a range of topics, all the challenges that it's like in that sort of early period, giving each other a bit of tips and advice. And it's just super casual, and it's a really good way to meet people who are on the same path, living the same adventure,
Mm,
hanging out on the fun side of the island, as our friend and mentor Andy Ramage would say.
exactly that. Exactly that. Yeah, I love it. Always love our community calls. So, yeah, if you are in any way interested in just coming along and seeing what it's all about, if you love it, stay. If you don't, we won't be offended, but I'm sure you will. Just drop us an email to an email saying interested to info at thealcoholfreerevolution.co.uk, and we will fire you over an invite, and it would be lovely to see you come along.
So who we got on the pod this week then, Steve?
So yeah. So really excited for this week. So we have the wonderful Mark Cox on the podcast this week. Now, I originally stumbled across Mark. He reached out to me through Instagram and invited us along to be on his podcast as well, which came out on Friday. It's probably the best name I've heard for a podcast, and it is Mum Dad's Got Another Tattoo, and it's a podcast that approaches all things middle aged, and they've been running and having a few people along to discuss dry January, and Mark himself is just coming on just over 1 year alcohol free. But it was really lovely to chat to Mark about some of the reflections he has over his first year going alcohol free, what that's brought, what he's loved, and and we're all about openness and honesty on here, and some of the things that maybe he's felt in the first year that have been a little bit more challenging, or those sort of questions that we've been talking a bit recently about identity and what have you. So been awesome to have Mark along. It was lovely for us to go on his pod last week as well, and yeah, just a generally bloody nice bloke, really.
Yeah, so I guess this is in a way is part two in the series, if you like. So part one is on his pod, and part two is on ours. But the conversations are pretty similar, and we cover a range of topics. And yeah, he was a really great guy to talk to, and we're looking forward to keeping in touch with him.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's get on with the episode. And yeah, welcome to the podcast, Mark Cox.
So today we are joined by Mark Cox. Mark, we had a conversation with about a week ago on his podcast, which is Mum Dad's Got a New Tattoo, which is the best name for a podcast I think I've ever heard. And we wanted to get Mark on because we had a great conversation all about booze and about midlife and all sorts of great stuff. And to be quite honest, we wanted our listeners to get a taste of that conversation as well. So I think we're going to speak about some similar topics that we spoke about on Mark's pod. But Mark, welcome to the Alcohol Free Revolution.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the kind words about the title. I can reveal that that isn't wholly creative. It is based on the reality of my midlife crisis, the subject of the podcast, which includes getting a number of tattoos. The first one I got about 18 months, nearly 2 years ago now. And I subsequently have about 25 now of
Wow.
varying sizes, shapes, and colours. So that is part of the of the subjects that we cover, but any aspect of midlife crisis is within that. And the reason we spoke is that I have been alcohol free for some time, and I wanted to talk to people who knew what they were talking about rather than me who had just winged it so far.
So, what brought you on this podcast
Yeah,
then?
I think one of us has got to say that, surely.
And I'm surprised you didn't jump in with midlife chrysalis as well, there, James, because that's your favourite expression of late, isn't it?
Love that. Yeah, love that.
Well, it was a great conversation, Mark. And actually, what we really loved about it is, it's just a really open and frank conversation. And you're what, about a year alcohol free now? Is that right?
Yeah, I was trying to think about when the actual day was, because I've like racehorses. I've said it's the 1st of January because I wasn't entirely sure, because there wasn't the archetypal rock bottom. I've got to stop drinking. It was just something that faded away almost. And funny enough, I had a weekend this weekend, a group of friends get together to watch the NFL semi-finals of the Super Bowl, if you like. And I cast my mind back to a year ago where I did drink during that, and I remember that because I woke up bleary-eyed one morning and I had to walk into some provincial town centre to basically to sober up and get ready to drive home. And maybe that there was an element of bleakness to that as I was sitting there looking out the McDonald's window onto a high street, thinking, oh, this this can't be healthy, this can't be good for you. Um, so it must be around this time, but that memory came flooding back to me this weekend just because this time I did it and was alcohol free and had a jolly nice time as well.
That's fantastic. So part of the reason we wanted to get you on our pod is because we run a community as well, Alcohol Free Revolution community, and two or three of the people are between 6 months to a year, and it's quite a regular conversation that we have, about what it's like kind of going through that kind of period of time. And we've spoken a bit about identity before, and certainly when we were on your pod, that came up, and that kind of rang a bell for Steve and I for some conversations we've had in the community recently. How have you, how have you found that, going, sort of shedding your former skin, I suppose, and becoming somebody who doesn't drink anymore?
Yeah, a bit of a double-edged sword, really, because I guess at first it's a topic of conversation. I'm not somebody who's ever shied away from conversation, which is good for podcast appearances and hosting, of course. But then on the flip side to that, I started to resent, might be too strong a word, or at least push back from the identifier of Mark doesn't drink. And I just felt really uncomfortable with having that as part of my personality anymore. I'm no more comfortable with that than I would have been if someone had called me a drinker. That that is a defining part of my personality. But I don't think either are true. And even when my wife says it as an aside, like sorting out logistics of going to a party, oh, it's all right. Mark doesn't drink. We can drive. And even that throwaway comment makes me still bristle a little bit. That like, why does this have to be a descriptor? And that's really the identity part of it, I guess, is that I don't want either drinking or not drinking to be part of my identity necessarily, and yet it is, and that is something that I've been struggling with. I get it's one of the few sort of downsides, if you like, that I've experienced over the year. Very infrequent, only when it comes up, but still something that I'm not entirely comfortable with.
It's weird because the default to be is to be a drinker, but we don't really refer to people to. We talk about like middle lane drinking, so people who are just like regular folks who have a few beers, a glass of wine, 80% of the population or whatever it may be, and we don't really label them drinkers because when you say the term drinker, you're immediately thinking okay, an alcoholic, but also when you label yourself as a non-drinker, you also have that same stigma attached in a way, don't you? Because people sort of think, well, why are you a non-drinker? What did something go? Did it get a bit out of hand? Did something go wrong? So it's almost like the default non-labeled bit is people who drink, and that kind of feels a little bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? Because sorry, the default should be, well, I don't do a certain thing. So that's, do you know what I mean? It's kind of strange that.
Yeah, but I do know what you mean, and have this little routine that I do whenever it comes up, like, do you fancy going out for a beer or whatever, and I would say, well, I don't drink, and then I feel obliged to qualify. But don't worry, I wasn't on a piece of waste ground at 10:30 a.m. with 50 missed calls and some white lightning. That wasn't the reason. I just, I just stopped. And why do I feel the need to clarify that? And I do. I feel like it's almost a knee-jerk reflex that I have to this conversation, and it's strange, and it is one of those strange things that I guess I think you mentioned before, James. I think about if you had the same reaction to smoking, if you say, "Oh, I don't smoke," You just go, oh, good for you. There doesn't need to be like this big story about how you started smoking, how many you used to smoke, and what was this massive catalyst to change your life around. That's not there at all. It's not part of the discourse. And yet, when you stop drinking for a bit, then even now you can see my language for a bit. I'm not committing to like being teetotal for life, even though I probably will be. It's just like all these weird little vocal, verbal, and mental tics that sort of come into this. And I don't really understand where they come from, and I'm not really happy about any of them, to be honest. That's just from an identity point of view. I mean, well, the benefits that those people that have from like 6 months to a year, they far outweigh that. I mean, it's not even close. But I find it an interesting wrinkle to the whole thing, rather than the central point itself.
This reminds me very much of a chat we were having again on the community a couple of weeks ago, where it is so woven into the fabric of everything that we do that even saying, "Are you going for a drink?" automatically associates alcohol. And that, because why can't you just say, "Yeah, of course I come for a drink"? Why does it have to be that justification? And I totally get where you're coming from, and it really gets my goat, and I didn't really even think about it until I stopped drinking, that it is genuinely is the only drug that we have to justify not taking.
Well, do we have to justify it though? Because
Or that people feel, maybe that's not the right expression, but we feel that there is some questions that promote that we should be trying to justify it, but we shouldn't. Absolutely right. Why should we?
Yeah, one of my first client meetings that I had, where I had to broach this, I was actually quite nervous about it, but was comforted by the fact there was going to be like 3 people from their side, 3 from our side. And when there's a bunch of you, you can sort of hide in plain sight, if you like. I mean, even that phrase is revealing. But one thing led to another, and it just turned out to be me and this other guy who was obviously really up for having a boozy lunch. And in the event, I said, "Look, I'm just not drinking at the moment," and didn't go into it. And so his response was, "Oh, well, fine. Do you mind if I do?" And no. And he tucked into a bottle of wine and then went off to a Pete Tong concert afterwards, which I think our meeting was the sharpener for. And but all those sort of need to justify, what am I going to say, what am I going to do, were in the event totally unnecessary. And so that's why I was questioning, do we need to justify it? It seems something that maybe it's internal to us, whereas people aren't really paying that much attention to you anyway. And Steve, you tell a great story about dancing at a party where nobody, you were a little bit reticent to do it, and then got involved, alcohol free, no one really paid any attention. I think that's a little bit of a metaphor for life, really, where you can be standing on the periphery of something and worried what other people would think if you just go headlong into it. And what happens is nothing. No one's really paying attention.
No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. You're right. And that moment you're talking about, and I think that only came because I was stood there, having not drank, just observing what was going on, and then realizing that absolutely no one in the room gave a shit what I did. And yeah, we believe that, don't we? It's these limiting beliefs that we think everybody's watching everything that we're doing, which is the total polar opposite, really.
I guess in the early days as well, there was a temptation to like have one or drink just to like avoid all that, which in retrospect was totally pointless as well. I mean, and these stories that we tell ourselves, so strange how we can get ourselves into this, put ourselves into little boxes, and that no one else is looking in.
I think part of it also is that because we've grown up around alcohol, because we're all, we're all in our 50s. I think you're in your 50s, Mark, or
I will be 47 at my.
Okay, my apologies. Okay,
James.
sorry, you're a lot younger than Steve.
We're never going back on Mark's podcast now.
Well, midlife, generic term.
Yeah.
I think because we've grown up for like a couple of decades around booze, and if you got into a pub a couple of decades ago when you were in your 20s and gone, "I'm not drinking," you literally would have been laughed out of the place. But that's and that probably has happened to us at some point or another. Maybe we've been a bit ill or we didn't want to go on a big night out, whatever. Didn't happen very often for me, but I'm sure it happened. And we kind of carry around that memory of getting ritually abused by our mates. And yet we play that 20 years forward and we still think that that's going to happen. But the reality is that doesn't really happen nowadays. I mean, I'm sure it does in some sort of circles occasionally for a minute, but it's not really that common. But we kind of carry it around as like, this is what's going to happen if I don't drink. I'm going to get thrown out of the tribe. And the reality is you normally find other people that be like, oh yeah, I don't drink either, or I'm thinking about doing that, or tell me about it. And the response is generally quite different to what you expect. So like Steve says, it's a limiting belief.
Yeah, it's totally. And I had this weekend away, which is typically a sort of boys, boozy, golf, the archetypal sort of get away from it. And this was the first time that I'd done it alcohol free, and I had just as good a time, if not a better time, because I wasn't battling against the as I say, we were watching American football goes on quite late, and that could be a bit of an endurance test if you're waiting for half time at 1:45 in the morning. That is a real barren spell that can make or break whether you watch the next couple of hours. And I actually sailed through it. I thought it was fine. I just time as I had in the previous years. There was no sense that I was on the outside because I wasn't doing this. We had a little chat about it. Some of these people I only see once a year at this event, so of course this is a life update. You give them a little bit of the highlights of it, and it's like, oh right, interesting. The same way that you listen to someone who's changed jobs, maybe. It's like, what are you doing now? Oh, brilliant. That's about it, really. So that was good. I was thinking about the identity just then as well, because even though I was resistant to the idea of being a drinker, I think part of my identity was sort of life and soul of the party, proud of being a good pissed person, if you like. Fun, upbeat. Whether that was actually the case or not, who knows? But let's assume for a moment that it was. And I guess that has gone away a little bit. At least I'm good at drinking. I can do it for a long time, and I'm fun to be around when I do. And that's gone. And I did miss that over the Christmas period this year, which was my first alcohol-free Christmas. Where I went to a party. I just couldn't be bothered to get involved. I just didn't have the energy. It wasn't for me. And so I left. And maybe I should have done that at a number of different parties as well. But there was some sort of, I did have a tinge of regret that I'm not going to have that again. But I don't know whether that's real or not.
Yeah, I know this was something we discussed, wasn't it, when we came on last week? And yeah, it was really interesting hearing your perspective, because I can go back and I can completely relate to those feelings during the first kind of 12 months for myself as well. And the thing we come back to quite a lot is it's that it's always ticking off those alcohol-free firsts, because there's going to be a first of everything. So when you finished saying that just then, it's like, I felt a tinge of sadness that I was never going to get that again. But sooner or later, that starts to become your new norm, and the Christmas just gone feels like it's uncomfortable, it's different, and that's where that feeling comes from. I don't know how you feel and relate to that, because everything when we do it for a first time feels that little bit different and that little bit uncomfortable, until it suddenly starts to become your new norm and just becomes the way that things are.
Yeah, normally I quite embrace new experiences and new challenges. I mean, that's part of the thing in my own podcast, is that you start taking up things or revisiting things that you wanted to do as you approach midlife. And one of the ways that you can sort of rediscover your identity is by doing new things. And so I've never been frightened or scared of taking that first step. But I guess what I started to feel like is that it was the end of the beginning of this journey, rather than the beginning of the end, where the novelty, the doing certain things for the first time seemed like exciting, and I'm interested to see what this is like now that I don't do this. And for the first time I felt like the novelty had worn off rather than anything else. And I guess this is one of my character traits is that I love starting new things, but getting through that messy middle bit to the end, I find very
Mm.
difficult. And you
Mm.
It's
can,
quite common.
and any sort of project has that sort of arc to it in terms of my enthusiasm. And so, yeah, I think it was the realization. I was like, ah, shit, I'm in that middle bit where that I don't like now.
Mm. That's quite common, I think, because starting a new project's exciting. When we get a buzz off, like, oh, it's a new thing, it's really exciting. And then when it gets to a bit like trudging through the middle part, like you describe, it's a bit like, what's new? Well, that's why people sort of start things and don't finish them because they get a bit hooked on the beginning part. I think that's kind of quite normal. So, Mark, I'd love to know if you don't mind sharing it. What was the what was the tipping point for you actually deciding to go alcohol free in the first place? What was the catalyst?
Well, it started with the onset of my midlife crisis, which I can pinpoint down to the very second because it was sparked by a photograph that my wife took of me and my daughter while we were on holiday. I think her intention was for it to be a, cutesy daddy daughter moment. And I guess maybe people would see it like that. I didn't see it like that. I saw somebody that had been kidding themselves about the state that let themselves get into physically. I was probably 2.5 stone overweight. And for the first time on that holiday as well, I was getting the idea that this has gone too far. We went to Thailand, um, having had probably a decade and a half of round the pool Mediterranean holidays, and the process was putting your shorts on and seeing what fit, the week beforehand, looking in the mirror and think, oh shit, I've left it too late again. But do you know what? Next year I will definitely get in shape for next year's holiday. And then when you get to the holiday resort, you're surrounded by people who've pretty much got the same sort of lifestyle of you, same sort of job. I mean, same sort of income bracket to get there, same age children. And so you're pretty much in the same shape. And so there's a safety in numbers. You sort of forget about it while you're there. But when I went to Thailand, firstly, we were surrounded by the gap year students who very obviously, in a generation below us. But I was also bumping into typically French or Italian dads who were in absolute tip-top shape. There was none of it, like abs, everything, with 4 kids and presumably the same sort of jobs as well, same stage as life. And it gave me a real slap in the face where I think, right, this is possible. I've been lying to myself about why I've allowed myself to get into this state. No more. And so from that point, I started doing yoga, started lifting weights, but I'm still drinking, not as much, but still the normal social drinking, I would say. And by that, it's normally at home with my wife. We'll nice cheese, some nice meat, some nice wine, stick a film on, and that's the weekend of the parents with young child, and I'm perfectly happy with that. But after about a year of working out, looking after my diet, I thought to myself, I should be in better shape than this. One of the things I thought what I'm doing is I'm being really good, if you like, for 4.5, 5 days, and then I'm doing all that work over two weekends. And then there was an additional thing where I'd started to like just have a glass of wine after work during the week. That's fine to an extent. But then it was affecting my sleep. Like my skin would get really hot. I'd feel itchy. And it came to the point where one glass of wine was probably costing me like 2 days of decent life performance, whatever you want to call it, for 2 days. And I thought, this cannot be right. So I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to stop for a while. No, um, like I didn't write the date down. Didn't say I'm going to do this for a certain time period. I just thought I'm just going to stop for a bit, and I immediately, uh, yeah, I would say immediately started sleeping much better. Mental health really improved. I've just felt so secure and confident in myself in a way that I don't think I ever had. And I think once you get some decent momentum behind that, it's very hard to give that up. I mean, you'll notice that I said stop drinking. I'm really vigilant about saying given up, because I don't really feel I gave anything up in the end. And so I just stopped. And then I got all these amazing benefits immediately, rather than say white knuckling for a 25-day period, or you normally set yourself as a target. And because of that, I just thought, right, I'm just going to carry on doing this until such time as I don't want to anymore. And I'm nowhere near that don't want to.
That is an absolutely brilliant account. I honestly, what you said there, I think, I love people who are sober curious to really listen to what you said there, because you've just laid it out so perfectly of what it's like. Because you talked about sleep got better so much quickly. You were doing all this effort in the gym and eating really well, but still drinking and thinking, why am I not getting any results? And then you take the alcohol out of the picture, and all of a sudden the brakes are off, and all those things start getting better and better. And yeah, you've just described the experience of the first year so well there, I think.
There
And
were a
then
couple. Yeah, there were a couple of other things about on holiday as well, where holiday is very important to me, as you could probably tell, that family time. But even so, in my previous life, don't really know how to describe that properly. I would just want to lie there and do nothing, and my daughter would say, like, "Can you come in the pool?" And I would, but a little bit resentfully, like, "Oh God, can't I just sit here for once?" And then even that had changed. Is like, "Can you come in the pool?" Yep, I'm right there, straight in. And there's been lots of occasions where I've had those moments with. We've got one daughter, and I've had such great times with her on holiday and just generally through life. I just feel able to be more present, and that's not because I was thinking previously, "Oh, I want to drink." It's just I've just got more energy
Mhm.
and yeah, it's probably just more energy, more patience, more lots of stuff that enables me to be just a better dad to her. I do think that. And I hadn't realized the anchor that just even a glass of wine or the sort of socially acceptable levels of drinking had. But it's only stopping that enables you to make that contrast, I guess.
I I can so relate to your words, and speaking as a dad myself, I've got two young boys, and until I stepped away, I had no idea just those things that I would do, like rush the bedtime story because I wanted to get down and grab a beer, thinking it was having no impact, or planning things, maybe not planning things that necessarily suited around them, more suited around me, and where there may be the opportunity to grab a drink if we were there or whatever. And let's be honest, young kids really aren't that interested in going to the pub on a Sunday afternoon. It's like, so, but we'd always figure a way of working that into a walk. And now we still do that, but it's an alcohol-free beer at the end or whatever it happens to be. But also, and I know we led on to this in when we chatted last week, what you're then also doing, and even though you have all that more energy and all that more clarity, you're also making far better memories for your daughter at that occasion as well. And it's just there'll be holidays that she will cherish and remember forever. So yeah, it opens up so much.
Yeah, I told this story previously. I'm happy to tell it again. We went to France, and in the summer, just drove down to the Bay of Biscay, where she again, it was like, "Can you come in the sea? Can you come in the sea?" And it was quite wavy and choppy, but that led to about 4 hours a day of like jumping and body surfing, something I'd never even done before. Probably wouldn't even wanted to have done. I'm much more sort of sunbed with a cocktail kind of guy. That was my, talk about identity. I quite like the idea of that. But that has now changed to this, active person on holiday who, someone that I might have, thumbed my nose at of just a few years ago. And maybe it's age and maturity and other aspects to it as well. But I just, as you say, clarity and energy is off the charts in a better position. And it helped me get fitter and stronger and kind of in the place physically where I wanted to be, which is helped me get mentally into the space that I wanted to be in all different aspects as well. So yeah, it has. I mean, I don't know, but hopefully she will think about that summer fondly, but I certainly will.
Did you mentioned there obviously about you lost quite a bit of weight. What was how did you find that transpired after you stopped drinking versus before? Because you said you were doing all this effort and eating really well and exercising and just nothing was really happening. Did you find that taking the break from alcohol was a real catalyst for losing weight?
Yeah, it's funny really because I'm not actually. I say 2.5 stone because it's more of a visual thing. I'm probably not that much different in weight between now and then. Um, but the shape is completely different. Like I've probably lost 10 centimeters, maybe even more off my waist, and
Wow.
put like 20 centimeters on around my shoulders. So I've gone from that sort of very doughy, soft looking to
Dad bod.
yeah,
The
yeah,
classic dad bod.
yeah, the classic dad bod to something but a little less embarrassing. I was embarrassed about the condition I was in, and then I became embarrassed at the fact that I was going like when say, "Oh, do you go to the gym or anything?" I say, "Yeah, I go 4 times a week." And again, maybe this is just in my head, and I felt need to justify. Yeah, I know I should look better.
Yeah, I don't do anything on there. I just
Yeah,
watch
so
everyone.
What's your favourite machine? The
Yeah.
vending machine.
it was kind of
Brilliant.
like that. But I didn't want to be. I was like a poster boy for what a waste of time going to the gym was.
But what do you put that down to? What do you put that down to though? Is it like the consistency improved or your output improved or what
Yeah, I
I'm
think.
trying to relate that to alcohol.
Two things. I think it's the thermodynamics, calories in, calories out, and that is just the fact. And I know there are complex relationships, but essentially at the headline level, that was it. And if you're creating a calorie deficit of like a sustainable one over a week of like 1,500 to 2,000 calories, it will probably lose you like less than a pound. But if you do that over a year, you'll have you can lose 40 pounds of fat if you've got that to lose. So you're doing that, and then in the middle of that, you say drink a bottle of wine, which I could easily do on a Saturday night, maybe even more. Then maybe have something else after that. You're eliminating that whole calorie deficit in um in 4 or 5 hours, and then as well, your body, you want it to process fat and build muscle, kind of has to say, wait a sec, I've got to deal with this first. And so you go to the gym, and then the body is dealing with the alcohol and processing that. And I mean, I'm grossly simplifying this, but your body sort of prioritizes what it needs to do. And building muscle is always at the back of that queue because it's difficult. It's,
Mhm.
our caveman ancestry hasn't left us. We haven't evolved out of that. And so it wants to hold on to fat for the lean times, and building muscle is calorie costly, so it doesn't want to do it. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
spot
Sorry.
on. I think what a lot of people miss with the alcohol and the whey and the calories is that what you talk about there, Mark, in terms of our bodies storing calories to take us through the winter, as it were, as fat. That doesn't happen with alcohol. So alcohol calories that we get from alcohol have to be used immediately by the body, and that happens normally in the form of they get burnt off as heat, so which is why you feel flushed, or you kind of see your classic Alex Ferguson with the veiny red nose. That's the heat escaping through the capillaries in the nose. So the obvious thing to sort of think is, oh great, so if I have 500 calories from a bottle of wine, then it's not going to turn to fat. Brilliant result, but it doesn't, because it means that those calories get prioritized ahead of the food calories. So it means more of the food calories get stored instead. So as soon as you take alcohol out of the mix, weight loss is naturally much easier because your food calories go to the top of the priority list in terms of what gets burnt first. Whereas when alcohol's in the mix, those sit at the top. And like I say, a bottle of wine is about 500 to 600 calories, and that's maybe a third to maybe a quarter to a third of your recommended daily calories. So once that's gone, it has an enormous impact on your weight.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what goes well with wine is, other
Cheese.
bad, yeah,
Yeah.
loads of
Kebabs.
it, yeah, and all those other choices that you make as well. I didn't actually realise the about the heat thing, but
Mm,
it really resonates with me
can't be stored.
because I was complaining to my wife. I was like, I'm so hot at night, but I'm not in a sort of sweaty way. I was just like, just felt my skin was really warm all the time
Mm,
in a very
mm,
uncomfortable way. And I wait till 3, 4 in the morning. And then, of course, the normal life starts about 4 hours after that. And I
Mm.
just felt terrible. I hadn't realised that was the reason until now. I'd related the two, but I didn't realise what the mechanism was.
Yeah, because invariably you're sedentary as well, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're quite pissed, you're probably going to be quite sedentary. So you're not actively burning off those calories. So your body's got to deal with them. It's got to get rid of it through heat. So and that
Yeah.
and then being hot affects your sleep as well.
And the amount of times you get the flip side, certainly, that phrase, oh, I'm going to go and sweat it out at the gym, that hangover, I'm going to go and get rid of it at the gym, which is just the absolute worst thing you can possibly do. But I know in my days, like trying to run off a hangover or anything like that, and when you actually look back at the damage you're doing to your body through doing something like that, it's just awful.
I think I
Mm.
actually gave up playing organized sport because of alcohol in a way. It occurred to me as I was thinking about what we might cover on in this conversation is that so I just used to play amateur football, nothing exciting. But in my late 20s, early 30s, I stopped playing. Didn't enjoy it as much. But one of the things I really didn't enjoy was not really going out on a Friday to in preparation for it, and then having my Saturday night ruined because I'd been running around for 2 hours. And so I basically gave up organised sport because of boozing, which I had never really thought about until this week. I would say, but
Mm.
that is definitely the case. And if you had said that at some point when you were talking about your relationship with alcohol, you would say that was really dysfunctional. And we talk about social and that middle lane drinking, but to stop doing something that was really quite good for you in place of something else, that is really unhealthy.
Mm. Yeah.
You can take that to a bit of an extreme as well, and sort of say you're giving up your passions. Because some of the things that comes up in coaching quite a lot is we ask people to look back at, well, what were you into before you kind of got into going to the pub? What you've described. What sort of things fell by the wayside that used to light you up when you were perhaps in your mid teens? And it might be sport, it might be painting, it might be dancing, it might be any number of things. And there's things that just fall by the wayside in preference to going down the park with a bottle of Diamond White, or something like that. And things that you didn't really pursue past your 15, 16. And sports quite a common one, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think just playing it at a high level was probably, as I say, I would say I played at whatever the lowest level of good football is. So not Sunday morning over the park, but
It's
you know,
Everton, isn't it, James?
All right. Hang on, let's not start having a go at my team. Steady on. You don't
yeah.
even like football.
You might. I'm not sure whether this should go out or not. So if you, but James, I can tell you about the time I nearly bought Everton.
So were there any other bad decisions you made whilst drinking?
Anyway, a bit of an aside.
Well, look, tell us a little bit. One thing I'd like to learn a little bit more about, actually, Mark, because you touched upon it at the beginning there, but about your podcast. I'd love to know a little bit more about how you got into, Mum's got Mum, Dad's.
Dad's
You got to
got
kind of say,
another tattoo.
you got to say it properly, right? In terms
Mum,
of
Dad's
Mum,
got another.
Dad's got
That's
another
it.
tattoo.
There you go.
Podcast.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, so if you do listen to that, my daughter features in the opening
It is your
titles.
daughter.
I
Right,
wondered if
okay.
it was your daughter.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah, it
sure.
was because it was a reflection of something that happened in real life, even though that was probably take 3 or 4 as we made it. But it was really a post that holiday in Thailand, pre giving up drinking, that someone mentioned to me as well. Like, you're obviously having a midlife crisis, which I'm happy to accept. You should do a podcast about it. And of course, I am a white middle-aged man. Why don't I have a podcast? And so that would be a great subject. And then I kind of thought about what I wanted to achieve about it. Well, I guess the aim is to build a community in the same way that you are, of like-minded people, mainly men, in the that midlife crisis. And people ask me, when is midlife? It's, there's no defined point of it. It's just when, you feel that something needs to change at some point. And what I wanted it to be was a community of people being able to do this in a healthy way, whether that's physically, mentally, with relationships, but also having a bit of fun at the ridiculous things that we do, like get 25 tattoos in 18 months, or I have a co-host, Richard. He went camping for the first time, and just reflecting on what we thought, what our expectations were, that sort of the way that the space that you kind of operate in, especially if you've got younger children, sort of seems to shrink a little bit. And then how do you create that space? And so we want people to be able to do that in a healthy way, but also, as I say, have a little bit of fun at the thoughts and the ridiculous things and situations that you get yourself into. So that is the idea. And then in a sort of broader point, I feel like society is changing for the better, in the fact that the white middle-aged man is at the top of the privilege tree, and other people are other groups are trying to deservedly be on a level playing field with that. And I want to be an ally to that and try and give a message that that's not something to be afraid of. That's something that we should help and facilitate, rather than this sort of masculine reaction against that tries to push back against that. That's not to say that I'm anti-male or anti masculine traits, but I want the healthy side of that, and not to push back, or you get the manosphere and red pills, and I want to be an example to people who are looking at that, to say there is a different way and of being happy, of being healthy, and enabling other people to do the same as well. It's not a zero-sum game, and we should be aware of that. That's my highfalutin sort of aim of it, is to be able to be a voice in that sphere. But yeah, so we've been going for about a year now, and I've really enjoyed it, even if no one were to listen, which is almost the case. Me and Richard find it really cathartic to have the sort of chats that we probably should have on the phone or in person, but don't. But we do, and we've spoken about struggles with mental health, neurodiversity, just the trials and tribulations that life throws at you, and it's enabled me to be a little bit more honest about all that, rather than pretending that everything's okay all the time.
Here, and I first stumbled across your pod when we kind of got in touch through Instagram, and I know you say there if no one's barely listening, but that they should be, because I have since we got on, I've listened back to some of the back catalogue, and I love it genuinely, and it's just in a time where men are getting around to that point where they are talking more and they are opening up more, and if the first stage to do that is on is on a microphone to broadcast it out to people, then brilliant, and it just opens it up so much more. So yeah, I really strongly recommend anybody to go and have a listen to it. It really is a great pod.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. And I mean, part of the doing that makes you aware, gives you a bit of perspective for a start. And I think somebody once said to me, maybe on the podcast, maybe somewhere else, that if you went to a party where you took all your problems and you could swap them with someone else's problems that they've taken, you'll probably come back with your own. And by talking about that, you can sort of put all those things that are happening to you in perspective. But also, I also find that some of this midlife stuff can be a little bit alpha male, and you got to be a leader of your family and your relationship and all this sort of stuff. And if that's what you want to do, great. But I feel like it's a little bit sanctimonious sometimes, and like that. And I just want to have a bit of fun with it as well, where it's appropriate. I mean, some of the subjects are pretty tough, and we have people from men's health charities coming on. It makes it more difficult to have fun with that. But again, it's all part of the tapestry of this point in our life.
I love what you said there a moment ago there about we're having conversations we really probably should just be having on the phone, because you're right, you just don't do that nowadays, right? Someone phones you up out of the blue, you're like, what? What's he
Yeah.
calling me for? It's the most alien thing, and it's it almost feels like bad manners to just phone somebody up out. You almost feel like you have to say, "Is it okay if I give you a call?" We were so reliant on messages,
Yeah.
and but it's true though, isn't it?
Messages, I know, it's so true, isn't it?
It
It's so true.
is.
Yeah,
I
you so
actually pull. Yeah, I pulled the leg of my co-host Richard. He is someone who will phone you up uninvited, and I do find it really rude. I say, "What are you phoning me for? That's what WhatsApp's for." Like you send me what you want to say, and when it's convenient to me, I will get to your message rather than this like poking me. Talk to me, talk to me,
Mm.
talk to me. That's what
Yeah.
the phone is, and I'm only half joking when I say that. But you're right. It's I think maybe that you do think you're being more considerate of other people's time because
But the problem is
nobody
we,
ever phones at a good moment. It would seem.
but we
Do you
don't.
know what,
But
though? I miss it. I really miss it. I do miss that. You pick up the phone. We call it a phone. It's not a phone anymore, is it?
no,
It's a computer in your pocket. It's a device. I'm even showing my age. That's a computer. It's not. It's
Yeah.
just this device. And I just
Yeah.
miss that. The phone, the old Peter Kay, give your mum 3 rings when you
yeah, yeah.
when you're safe
Yeah.
or whatever it happens to be. But
We
again,
well, we
showing age.
we lose an enormous amount of the value of a conversation if it's not, having a conversation through Messenger or WhatsApp. It's not the same as having a conversation on the phone. Clearly, the interaction and the banter and the voice. It's one step removed from having a conversation in person because you're
Mm.
removing the body language. But when you strip it right back to just texting, it's not in. It's not. It's not doing that good stuff for us. I don't know how to describe it from a mental health point of view. Communicating with your friends and your peers and people you care about. It's just not the same over text as it is to having a conversation or meeting up and spending time together. But that's kind of what we've distilled it down to.
Mm. Yeah, and I think the online community as well. Like it's easy to find your own tribe, which is good in the case of, we think we're doing good things with the alcohol-free revolution and what I'm trying to do as well. A lot of overlap there, but there's also a bit of confirmation bias when you start to have more extreme thoughts about either yourself or society. And previously, I think you may have been challenged by family or friends or in a community space, which may moderate that a little bit and give you another perspective. But now you can sort of retreat to your own tribe online and then shout at all the other people online in a way you would never do in real life about
Mm.
how terrible they are. And I wonder if the division that we're seeing isn't necessarily a result of, I mean, it's a contributory factor, of course, the sort of propaganda that your feed can show you, but it also means that you're not that tolerant of people with other views. Like
No, of course not.
my uncles and I have like real political differences, but we argue about them all the time. But then we sort of come back together emotionally because of the shared bond and history that we have. And I think we're
Mm.
losing a bit of that through the way that we communicate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's been another great conversation, Mark. Thoroughly enjoyed it. If any of our listeners want to go back and check out your podcast, a good place to start is me and Steve on there, which I think
Yeah,
so. Our pod comes out on a Monday. I think you said yours is out the following Friday. So actually, no, you're before us, aren't you? So you're.
yeah,
I'm
that's
going to make
right.
a complete mess of this. So when this comes out on
Monday.
Monday, the first or
No,
second
Monday.
of on Monday coming up,
Second of February. This will
second
be
of
out.
Feb,
Yeah.
yours would already have come out on the Friday, which I guess is part one of this conversation, a bit of crossover.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you'll kind of get a little bit of, from what I recall from the conversation, you kind of get a bit of me and Steve giving you a bit of free coaching. So if you want to, if you're thinking about coming to coach with me and Steve, you'll get a little bit of a taste of it with Mark. Inadvertently, that wasn't part of the plan, but it just kind of played out that way. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I thought it was well timed because dry January is coming to an end, and if anyone had was doing that or had thought about doing it, and what happens next. It was kind of the premise of that show, and we concentrated more on that.
Yeah.
And so thanks to James and Steve. They've I haven't checked the mail for my invoice yet, but no doubt it's on its way.
Oh, brilliant. Well, listen, just whereabouts can people find your pod, Mark?
So we're on all platforms, from Apple Podcasts or Pocket Casts, YouTube as well. Comes out once a week on a Friday, and we cover as wide a range of topics relating to midlife as possible. So including if you want to go alcohol free.
We will absolutely drop a link into our show notes so that people can look you up and find out more. Mark, it's been awesome having you on board.
Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Good to meet you, Mark. You've definitely picked up another couple of listeners here. So yeah, all the best. We look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye.